Brought to you by Clicks. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Jouar, and today is Wednesday, March 11th, 2026, and I've got the most excellent Jeff Gadway here with me from Clicks. Hi, Jeff. How's it going?
Hello. I'm very well, Miriam. Nice to see you. It's been a minute. Well, a couple months anyways, since CES. So good to see you.
So, hey, Clicks, where are we at? Here we are at CES. You showed me all the good stuff, and I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. You've got this communicator, you've got this, MagSafe sliding keyboard, and then where are we at now 2 months later?
It's been a whirlwind. I mean, has it only been 2 months? It feels like it's been
I think it's been a
half
lot
a year.
more, actually. Maybe I'm not counting right.
It's been fantastic, Miriam. I mean, the response to Communicator and to Power Keys, it's just blown away our expectations. I mean, we had our targets for sales for call it the first half of the year, and we blew through those targets within the first 21 days.
Wow!
And I think
Congrats.
it's just thank you. It's a testament to there's a need here that we're solving that I think people people really have, and they really see the value in these products and the stance that we're trying to take with both of them. So it's been great. I mean, because of that feedback and the feedback from the market, we've been able to do a few really cool things. Step up to more languages on Communicator.
Yeah,
that was one of the things
keyboards,
we announced.
You got Quartz, which is German. You've got Azerty, which is French.
Korean and Arabic. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're seeing interest come in from around the world, and then I know you'll be keen to talk about this, but also we're able to step up to a better SoC, to really make sure that we give Communicator lots of performance headroom and updates for many years to come. So it's been a great start of the year. Really excited, and everything is on track. I think that's the big message I want to leave people with. Communicator, we're still on track to have working units in Q2, ship later this year, and Power Keys, everything is on track there.
Cool.
We'll be starting to ship early May on those. So,
all right, I'm looking forward to getting one. That's going to be fun. I think like Power Keys is one of those kind of like hidden gems because, look, the reality is it could just be a keyboard that you use with your Apple TV or something. It sits on your living room table. You never use a magnet, whatever, right? Or maybe, crazy idea, you put your phone on the magnet, but you actually don't use the keyboard on the phone. Like you're just like using the keyboard on the TV, but you're like, I get this, all these choices you have. You could put it landscape. You can put it portrait by sliding it. You got all these options. You can put a folding phone on there. You can put a regular phone on there. I mean, you guys have shown us all the use case scenarios, and I think it's all the goodness that we have from the Clicks case, but in a format that can move from device to device. And as a multi-device user, also multi-OS user, for me, like being able to put this on my iPhone for a bit, then pop it on my Pixel, then pop it on my folding phone, which is generally a Chinese phone, with a case, because unfortunately the Chinese phones don't have built-in MagSafe. But, whatever, it's great. So kudos to that. Are you also making that with multiple keyboards?
Not as of yet. Right now, we're still focused on QWERTY only on Power Keys, but never say never, right? I think, we want to make sure we get the product out the door, that it's, a 4.5, 5-star product, and then we can take it in all sorts of different directions, yep. Languages included. But I love that you mentioned sort of the cross-platform versatility of Power Keys, Miriam, because, the thing that I think people don't realize is that with a lot of these apps that we use every day, they've all built their own input method, right? WhatsApp has its own input method keyboard versus iMessage versus, Gboard. And with Power Keys, you have the same keyboard layout, the same, effective input method across all of your things. And you might see it, actually, it might be just out of frame over here, but one of the things I picked up since we last were together was a Vision Pro headset. And when I was on my way over to Barcelona, I was, that guy on the plane wearing Vision Pro, using Power Keys.
Oh my God, of course. That's even better.
So it's super cool. I mean, there's so many different ways you can use something like that. We're really excited about it. And people seem to be reacting really well.
Great. So then you're shipping, you said early May?
Yeah, so we had committed to shipping in spring. We're still on track with that. The first shipments will go out in early May, and because of the interest, we had to beef up our first order, and we're excited to get it in people's hands. So yeah, right now, all of the final QA testing is done. I saw some videos from the factory the other day where there was a machine that was just you know inserting and removing the slider, almost looked a little phallic the way it was doing the thing.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
another machine that was just pushing buttons. So yeah, everything is on schedule with Power Keys, which is great.
For those of you who are just listening and are not on the Patreon watching the video, patreon.com/TNKGRL. If you want a video version of the podcast, go check that out. So here's the thing. I'm wondering, right now you only have it in black, right? And you only have the QWERTY. So one thing we talked about at CS that I was really excited about is it's got MagSafe. So it charges, right, wirelessly your device. It's got a small battery in there that you can charge with USB-C. Have you looked into reverse charging through the USB-C and to use it as a power bank? Because, you keep the thing in your pocket, then all of a sudden, wouldn't it be cool to wire charge something a little faster than wireless? I know at the time you said that was more of a firmware thing.
Yeah, it turns out we looked into it further. It would require some additional hardware too, in addition to the firmware considerations that we had spoken about. So it won't be in V1. I think the other thing is just philosophically, because the battery is 2,300 milliamp hours, which
it's not going to last very long.
It's not really geared towards being a power bank like that, but we were able to increase the battery capacity. I think when we first met, we were quoting 2,150, and
cool.
we were able to get a little bit more. Just as we finalized all of the internals and the mechanical engineering, able to boost that up to 2,300. So really the way we think about Power Keys is keyboard first, power bank second, but with the added benefit of being able to give your phone a little bit of a top up. Or, we had a lot of people ask, like, can I just turn the wireless charging off altogether and have it be a 2,300 milliamp hour keyboard? And the answer is yes. There'll be a keyboard shortcut you can use to toggle the charging on and off. So if you want to preserve all 2,300 for the Bluetooth keyboard functionality, you can absolutely do that.
That's super cool. That's what I'm talking about. All right.
All about control. Give you the control.
Let's talk about Click's Communicator and what's updated there. So you mentioned we've got a new processor. We'll talk about that in more detail in a minute. You've got the new keyboards, and that's awesome. What about shipping times? Do you have any timelines for us?
So what we've shared since the beginning is shipping later this year, and we're holding ourselves to that. But what we've added is saying that in Q2 we'll be able to show some working units.
Okay.
So everything is on track with all of the different kind of steps along the way. I think people are very eager. Of course, they say, "Oh, I want to get it in my hands. I want to see it." We do too. There's nobody who wants to have it, more than us. But these things take time, right? So all of the work on the supply chain sourcing has been conducted and concluded. So we know all the suppliers. We're currently working on all of the PCB design, and we're making our own custom silicon carbon battery cells. So everything is going to plan.
You're going silicon carbon on this? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Do you know what capacity you're aiming for? I mean, I know this changes because, again, I know hardware is hard. I worked in hardware. I was at Pebble back in the early days. And I know nothing is finalized. Also, I've worked with Adrian before, your CEO, and I'm well aware that, he's got all the connections, so he can do things like increase the battery size on a Power Keys from 21, whatever it was, to 23. And so give us a rough idea in terms of capacity, what you're aiming for there.
Yeah, so capacity on the battery for Communicator, 4,000 milliamp hours silicon carbon.
Wow,
so
awesome.
That we know. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, when you think about it, like, it's not the biggest battery in the world, but when you combine the 4,000 milliamp hour silicon carbon with a slightly smaller display, right?
And a very efficient chipset.
And a very efficient chipset, the recipe there is really good performance, which is what you would want from your kind of go-to communication centric phone. Like, you want to be able to pick it up and have the confidence that it's going to be charged and ready to rock and roll.
Exactly. So, all right, let's talk about one of the things that keeps coming up in various discussions out there, and it's two devices versus one device. Like, some people have a hard time understanding how Click's Communicator fits into the current ecosystem of their lives, right? Like, obviously it's Android. That explains the thing. But, Android's iOS, that battle's ongoing. But I think that if you're on, now with things like AirDrop coming to mainline Android devices more and more, like that's going to be incorporated into the OS level, it's going to be easier for people. And, RCS has really been a game changer for people using iMessage versus Android. So that's the minor thing. But where do you see things? Like, do you see two different customers here, and what do they look like?
It's a great question. And this is one of the big realizations we've had since the announcement in January. We positioned Communicator initially as a second phone that's really optimized for communications, and that people who use a primary, like a flagship, whether that's an iPhone Pro or maybe a Pixel or an Ultra or something else, that they will likely continue to use that because they need the really good camera quality, the large display for immersive content and things of that nature, and that Communicator would fit in alongside that as the phone that they reach for, pardon my français, but getting shit done, right? If I can say that. However, and we still believe that. We definitely believe that. That's how I will use it. I'll be a two phone person. I already am a two phone person. I know you're a two phone person or more.
More.
But what we found, Miriam, which is really interesting, is that there is a large and passionate group of people who, you go look at the comments on the launch video, and they're like, how dare you say this is my second phone? This will be my primary. This will be my daily driver. Whoever runs marketing at Click should be fired. They just don't get it. And I sit back and I laugh because that's great. If Communicator does everything you need it to do to be your daily driver, to be your primary, because maybe you don't need a three camera system with insane telephoto and
I mean, look, the reality is
great.
iPhone 17e just came out and it's got a single camera, and it's, apparently, according to some people I've talked to, last year's 16e, which was similar, has sold like hotcakes, especially through prepaid. So like some people don't care,
Right.
That's the reality. And that's possibly there's a crossover here between the people who want one camera and our, Click's Communicator customers. So,
but you asked like who's the profile, right? And what we've heard in just talking to customers and listening to the way people are talking about the product and how it fits into their life, there's a few really interesting scenarios that have come up. We've talked to some people who are really busy professionals, and they go, my iPhone or my primary today has just become this like everything phone that's constantly notifying me of everything, and it's fraught with distraction. And so I want to buy Communicator, light it up with its own SIM card and its own number, its own data plan, and only give that number out to my family and my executive team. And so it becomes like my VIP phone, like my bat phone, right? So that's kind of an interesting use case that we hadn't quite thought of. And then there's people who are interested in actually moving their SIM card over and saying, okay, this is going to be my evening and weekend phone, so I'm going to put my primary SIM in this when I'm looking to disconnect a little bit and create a little bit more boundaries between my digital well-being. So I think there's lots of different ways that people are thinking about this. And then there are people who are just like, give it to me. It's my primary phone. It's my daily driver. I've missed my BlackBerry. I've missed something that was more purposeful, more intentional. I'm trying to, be on social media less and doom scroll less. And I really see the value in having a product that is literally rebalanced, with less screen and more input. That's going to help me do that. So, I mean, there's lots of different ways people are thinking about it, which is really fun to hear. And we're not trying to say there's only one way to use this.
Yeah, for sure. I think what I'm excited about is, I think there's a big, strong scenario. Most people I've talked to in our realm, right? Like my audience is tech savvy early adopters, the people that are in my environment, you know, Michael's on your team and he's a good friend, Michael Fisher. And, you know, so things like that. I think for me, it's like, I can see potentially where you use clicks communicators to get work done, business done. That's when you get like into that get things done mood, as you said earlier. And then when you want more recreational stuff, when you do want to doom scroll, when you are taking photos for your family or whatever, you pull out your iPhone, you pull out your Android, you know, your Galaxy or your Pixel or your Oppo, awesome Chinese phone, right? And that's kind of where I see myself kind of being really, because right now I do this, but I do the main phone and then my clicks communicator is actually a folding phone, like, you know, because I got the screen real estate to do the work. So, and the square format really works well for that, you know, and that's, I think, another thing that is in your favor here. So, you know, but yeah, I also see, you know, as you said, the weekend warrior who like decides like, hey, I just want to use this on weekdays, and I'm going to use my fun phone on weekends, which are going to be more about photography and entertainment. Right. And then, you know, the other way, the reverse of that. And then of course people are like hardcore. They're like, no, I don't need the camera. I want to go back to having that keyboard experience all the time.
Totally.
And I think, you know, all of these are valid, and at the price point you're selling, and please remind us quickly for the people who don't know.
Right. So $499 launch price. Our early bird is still on for a few more days at $399, but $499 will be where, you know, people are able to pick it up moving forward. So,
you know, you're looking at the same price as a Pixel 10a right now, or 9a. That's pretty great, in my opinion. So yeah, and you know, I think you also are addressing a whole audience of people who have been longing for the keyboard and bought a clicks case for the iPhone or their Pixel or their Razer. And those folks, you know, like they're like the Kevins, right? Crackberry Kevin, right? Like he's also on your team. They are those people. They will never give up the keyboard. They want the keyboard to come back. And I'm not that person. Like I'm happy to have a keyboard. It's not a deal breaker that I have a on-screen keyboard instead. So I think in that sense, you have that other audience too. And you know, I think you also have another audience of younger people who are kind of rediscovering the touchy feeliness of technology, right?
Or discovering it for the first time, which is fantastic, because, you know, even with the keyboard case, 45% of the people who've been buying this are first-time keyboard users.
And that's exactly where I'm going. You know, people are right now buying those old Cybershot cameras. They're buying old iPods and refurnishing them, adding Bluetooth to them. They're doing, you know, maybe playing with mini disc or whatever because they want that tactile experience. And I think that's totally valid. We have so much virtuality in our lives right now that, you know.
Yeah, the thing that we hear, you know, the most from people using the keyboard case, and I think it'll carry over to Communicator and even Power Keys too. They say, look, there are certain kinds of tasks that are real keyboard tasks, whether that's editing a document or booking a flight online or buying something where you want to fill out, you know, a form. It depends. It's different for everybody. But today we hear from people saying, look, the thing with having real buttons on my phone is that I can do more of those types of tasks on the go, and I don't have to wait until I get back to a desk with, you know, a real keyboard to do those things. And so it kind of changes the way that you use your phone and the way that your whole phone fits into your kind of everyday carry ecosystem. So 100%. I think Communicator really embraces that too.
One last thing, let's talk about that chipset you picked, because that's, you know, there's lots of nerds on this show. We want to know. So Dimensity 8300 IoT version. People might not be familiar with what that means, right? And also they might be looking at going like, didn't they just launch the 8500? Like that's 2 generations back. So let us educate.
Let us educate. So the Dimensity 8300 series is MediaTek's upper mid-range smartphone chipset. So anything that they put into a smartphone as like a smartphone chipset is branded the Dimensity series. And the 8300 was announced in 2023, available to start putting into their projects in 2024. And the first phones with the 8300 series came out in 2025. So it's not like it's a super old chipset. However, we have elected to use the MT8883, which shares all of the same architecture as the Dimensity 8300 series in terms of performance cores, efficiency cores. It uses the exact same die for the chip itself. However, it's optimized for IoT applications. And so it has a much longer product lifecycle, supported product life, than the 8300 series itself.
Right.
So it's all the performance of the 8300 series with additional lifespan, which I think is ideal for a product like this that you're not likely going to upgrade every 12 or 24 months.
Right. So speaking of that, to wrap things up, what do you see the life cycle being for this product? What are you guys aiming for? I to be clear, I want to be realistic. I personally don't think 7 years is very nice and aspirational and maybe virtue signaling a little bit. Good for Google and Samsung to do that. Apple's not committing officially, but we know they do that. And that's good. But I think a lot of people after 4 or 5 years, their phone needs to be replaced, in my opinion. So what are you aiming for here? Because, the biggest challenge with small batch, kind of like boutique products like yours, which I kind of think is awesome. I love the idea that we can now create phones on a whim in small batches. This is amazing. I want more of that. I'm all in on that. But the problem we've seen traditionally, like with the Unihertzes of the world and stuff, is like you get no software updates. You get maybe 1 or 2 security updates a year in and you have nothing. So obviously I know you guys are aware of that and I'm going to fix that. But there's also only so much you can do because you want to grow the company, make new products. You can't support forever. It's very time consuming and expensive, right?
Right. So we have an amazing software team based out of Taiwan. A lot of people, that come from HTC, so they have deep mobile experience. So I think that's the first thing. We have the expertise. And then the chipset that we've selected, that MT8883, we're able to commit to Android updates through Android 20 and 5 years of security updates. And that's something that we're going to make good on. And we're building the team to be able to do that and make those updates regularly. The other thing, though, when it comes to longevity of the product, and one of the reasons why we stepped up to the 8300 series and the 8883 is that for the intended use case, we think that that's going to give us tons of performance headroom to spare. So as these phones have more capabilities added to them through the OS updates, we want to make sure there's enough processing power and headroom to be able to support those new applications and use cases instead of just sort of, hitting the bare minimum of spec. We want to make sure that, it'll be usable, for many years to come.
I think you're in good shape with the 8300, frankly. I think the 8000 series from MediaTek, it's a 5G chip that's right below their flagship, and right now, even if you're 2 years technically on, the die is the same as a 2-year-old, you're still well above, you're in the same realm as some of the best chips that are available on phones today. So I don't think you have to worry about that. I'm excited to see the updates come in and also, how you work with the community to evolve the software and the feature set, because that's the best part, right? This going back and forth with your audience. It's so great.
And we're trying to do that, Miriam. I mean, I appreciate that you recognize that. We've added some new back covers as a direct result of feedback from the community. Someone was like, "Oh, we need a pink cover." We're like, "Okay, cool." So it's on the website now. People were like, "Oh, we want something special for Founders Edition." So we've done a special Founders Edition cover. And there's more things we're working on in that same spirit. And so, we're building this for ourselves and we're building this for the community. And we think that we're going to be able to find an audience in doing that. So really excited to come back. We'll have to come back on when we've got some working units in Q2 and give you a first look.
I'm looking forward to it. This is a great place to wrap up. Thanks so much, Jeff, for your time and for being on the show. This is such an insightful conversation. I'm so glad we had a chat about it.
Thank you, Miriam. See you next time.
All right. Take care. And folks, we're back with Dom Preston of The Verge. Hi, Dom. How's it going?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
I'm great. I'm a little jet lagged, but it's funny because when I talked to you at MWC about doing this podcast, I was like, oh, hey, we're going to be on the same time zone, but I kind of forgot that. Even though I was going to see my mom after the London thing and the MWC thing, like the Nothing event, I was like, wait, I'll be there. And then I'm like, no, I won't, because I record later in the week. And so here I am. Anyway, listen, we had Jeff Gadway on from Clicks. That was a really fascinating conversation, but we have so much to talk about this week. I kind of want to make a 2-hour podcast almost, but we can't, because I think people are going to get a little bored. I have a couple of devices to unbox. Let's start with the iPhone 17e. Not unboxing it just yet, but reviews are out. Specifically on The Verge, we have Allison's review. Mm-hmm. You probably have some thoughts. I have some thoughts. I reviewed the 16e last year. So good, bad. What do you think?
I think it's such a huge improvement from last time. I think I don't know yet that this is the perfect, affordable, budget-ish, mid-range iPhone. But I think there was a line in Allison's review, actually, which was that it's now the minimum viable iPhone in a way that it wasn't last year. And I think that kind of nails it. I think the 128 gig storage and missing MagSafe last year made it just feel like a really bad way to spend $599.
Yeah, it was like, you're like, no. Especially when we had just reviewed the Pixel 9a, which was like, hallelujah, right? For $100 less, it brought a whole bunch of really good things. And this year, I feel it's the reverse. I feel very May about the 10A. We're going to talk about that. My review's up. Your review's about to go up. And by the time the podcast is published, we'll be up. So yeah, it's interesting how like so little bits and pieces, you move sliders around just a little bit and you get a completely different outcome. And I wish manufacturers would understand that. I think maybe they do, but maybe they're like, there's all these forces, market forces, supply chain issues and whatever else that make it so that sometimes they just don't hit that sweet spot, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a balancing act for them, right? And it's about the positioning within their own lineup. That was part of the strange thing. Part of the shift for the 17e is the 17 has come out, and the 17 was kind of a different iPhone to the 16, and that's changed the way it feels as a value proposition in Apple's lineup. And then you've got the same thing going on with the Pixel, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But the Pixel 10 suddenly had to shift in its camera setup compared to what Google had been doing in the flagships before. And that then changes how you look at the 10A, because suddenly, it's got still the same cameras as the flagship, and that shifts where you look when you're always doing that. Well, if you spend $200 more, you get that. If you spend less, you get that. It's always just shifting very delicately up and down. I think you're absolutely right. The last year, it felt like this slam dunk. Well, obviously buy the Pixel if you've got that much money to spend. That's the phone to buy in that mid-range segment, especially in the US.
Yeah, especially in this place. Yeah,
and it's shifted a bit this year. Yeah.
No, I agree, and I think that also the iPhone 17 base is my recommended best value phone right now for iPhone users. I know most of them are not going to do that. They're going to get a Pro because subsidies in the US is like, I think like $2 or $3 more a month or something to get a Pro. So it's totally not worth it for them to just get the 17, because a telephoto is really a great thing to have.
For sure.
But at the same time, the 17 finally hits the spot. And so that makes it to me like, a little hard to recommend the 17E in a way, but at the same time, there is room for prepaid carriers for people who want to buy the phone, own it with their own money, and they don't care. Like, I think a lot of people forget that there are some people who barely take photos with their phones.
Yes.
And if you do need an iPhone at that level, and why spend all that money on the cameras when what you want is the A19, what you want is the 256 gigs of storage, what you want is the MagSafe.
Yep.
You don't care about the 60 hertz display being 60 hertz at that point. So, all right, I'm going to unbox this thing live on TV. So, tabs. This is an iPhone 17e. I believe it's the pink one. Here we go. Oh, hang on a second. I got to do this from the microphone because this is always sweet and delicious. The sound. Here we go. All right. Let's do the other one. Maybe it'll sound a little better. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Okay. Here is the cover. And then here is pink. Oh, yeah. And it doesn't come with anything, as usual. There is basically just a cord and some manuals, as you'd expect. So I'm not going to dig into that. But we're going to get the delicious removal of the front sound, if we can get it. Hang on, here we go. Oh, it didn't make any noise.
Silent.
Okay, so of course it has bezel-tastic display. I'm going to turn it on with no dynamic island. I was kind of hoping they would put the dynamic island and maybe the 18 megapixel square center stage.
I think the selfie is the center stage selfie I thought we might get, but
here's the thing.
Maybe next year.
It's so delightful to have a matte finish, just like the Pixel 10a, to have that glass that doesn't fingerprint, all that good stuff. There we go. Oh yeah, look at that. So delightful. All right. So expect a review from me in the next, I don't know when this is going to happen now. I have so much on my plate.
There are a lot of phones.
This will depend on what my editors feel like needs to happen really at this point. Because, on the podcast, I'll give you a review soon. But the written review for Hot Hardware, I've got so much right now, I don't even know where to start. So that's it. iPhone 17e. I think it's great. I think that, I wish I had an ultra wide, but at that point, the 17 should have a telephoto. And then at that point, what do we do with a Pro?
Exactly.
Does the Pro become an ultra phone? Which is, honestly, I feel as a candidate, it's a possibility. I don't know if you've listened to the previous shows, but when Nirav was on right after Unpacked, my argument, and I think we've seen this argument too from other folks, some YouTube creators, is that, Apple really proed very well and very hard with the Pros this year. Like they feel like the tools that they're meant to be for those who are pros and who are creators. But compared to like the Chinese Ultra and even the Pros, like if you look at the Find X9 Pro, they're not quite in the same league. And the S26 Ultra is suffering from that. It is not Ultra. Samsung needs to Ultra harder. And if they're going to Ultra, this needs to be a Pro. I think they should take the S26 Ultra and make it a Pro phone, or remove that stupid 3x vestigial telephoto, right? and hear me out. Remove the S Pen, make that an option, and then price it at 100, price it like the iPhone, a little less, and make a smaller version as well. And then we have a Pro, and then now you can go Ultra. Now you can make that trifold level device that you're doing on the Fold side that costs $2,000 and has like the 1-inch sensor, the variable aperture, and you can show that Samsung still owns hardware on Android in the West. I wish they would just go nuts, but they're so chicken. They just look at their numbers. They're all about volume, but the volume product could be the Pro. Make the Ultra as a Halo device. And I think Apple, the rumors of them going Ultra on some devices is really exciting me because I kind of want that spread.
Yeah, I'd love to see them actually try and take that fight to the big Android OEMs that are pushing those Ultra cameras. I mean, the thing that fascinates me about how Apple and Samsung would ever do that, if they did, is how they would approach it from a design perspective. Because if you look at all of those Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, Honor kind of Ultra tier products, they've all got that huge circular DSLR-inspired camera mount, right? Which most people seem to think is pretty ugly. I know there are other people out there who like those looks. I love those phones. I review them all the time. I don't think they look great. And I can't imagine Apple and Samsung putting out phones with that design language. And I'd be fascinated to see how they handle that huge camera. The hardware is big, right? And you got to put it somewhere. Yeah.
I mean, that's the opportunity for them to come up with a new solution to that. And I kind of feel like the camera plateau could be reworked to do that, like on Apple and Samsung could work something out. I think that's a minor thing at this point. I'm just saying, like in an ideal world, I wish that there were Ultra phones from all the manufacturers, and even if they cost a lot of money, they're Halo devices. That you still have Pros that delivers, but with inflation and on the current climate of politics and economy, I think it would be nice to have around that $1,000 to $1,200 sweet spot, have some Pro phones that are real Pro phones, not Ultra, but Pro and good, and click all the boxes, and don't make us feel like we're getting cheated in the same way that I feel like I'm getting cheated with the S26 Ultra, because I feel like privacy display is great, but that's the only great thing about that phone. It feels so like Groundhog Day. Like I feel like I'm literally like, I looked at all my previous reviews. I'm like, I'm reviewing the same freaking phone over and over and over. I'm sick and tired of writing these reviews. I almost want to say, pointer to my last review. And for the camera section, I just want to say better aperture. Here are the results. And the rest is the same. Carry on. Oh, horizon lock. That's it. Done.
Well, I mean, that's part of what I said in I just reviewed the regular S26 and the Plus.
Yeah, we'll dive into that actually.
Yeah, and they have that same problem. You look back at the camera specs, have been the same camera hardware since for 4 or 5 years, basically. And you can go back and say they have not changed a single thing in those cameras for 4 years.
Yeah. All right. So the thing that's got me the most excited, I have not been able to stop thinking about it since it was announced a week ago. While I think I was flying back I was flying into London for the Nothing event from Barcelona. I was sitting at the airport when the announcement was made, and I was like, Look, first of all, you have to understand, I'm an Android user with a Mac. Now, I do use Windows and Linux. I was a game developer. I like to have the console and the terminal available to me at all times. On my Windows machine, I actually install the entire new C++ compiler toolchain, everything that I need to work. On Linux, obviously, it's trivial. On Mac OS, it's trivial. But for me, as much as I love having a good tablet for consumption, I cannot make a tablet my main device, because to use Steve Jobs' analogy, I need a pickup truck. Like if I, in real life, as a car enthusiast who covers and reviews cars, I want a sports car. But for my tool to do computing with, I want a pickup truck. I want something that can do anything. And that's what's got me so excited about the Neo. It is a pickup truck that's really affordable and small and light and gets the job done. It's, the analogy here in North America is people buy these massive trucks, right? That are completely useless because they just drive to the mall with them. And every now and then they go to Home Depot and put some manure in the back. Those are the MacBook Pros of the world. Right? They're incredible devices. But I feel, I've been saying this for months now. I think that starting with the maybe M3, M4, we know most people that are pro creators don't even need a MacBook Pro. They just are perfectly okay with an Air. So now the Neo kind of comes in below that. And it brings in that little, kind of like Hilux size pickup truck vibe that's affordable, and you don't care if you lose it or whatever. I mean, maybe you do. I mean, everybody's got a different budget. My point is, I'm super excited, plus colors. Yep. And I feel like the compromises they made are really reasonable, and the reviews are definitely reflecting this. I'm hoping Apple sends me one. I've requested it. If not, I'm going to buy one, and I'm going to make it my daily driver. I'm on an M2 Air right now. I'm a base M2 Air.
Yeah, I'm on the exact same.
8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage. The only reason, normally all my Macs have 512. The only reason I went for 256 on this one is because it was actually given to me as part of a job I had. And then when I left the job, they said, you can keep it. And so I was like, well, 256, I'll just live with it. I got an external SSD I use if I ever run out of space, and I offload some stuff and I keep working. My other Macs that I have, like this Mac Mini M4 I have here, is also the base model, but it came with 16 gigs of RAM, and then storage, I have an external 1 terabyte Thunderbolt 5 SSD on that. So whatever, I don't care. The 256 that's built in, it's empty. I'm not using it for anything right now at all. And I don't care. And I bought it very early on because I knew it was going to be awesome. And now you can buy modules to update it yourself and stuff. And I could do that, but whatever. My iMac up in Vancouver is, unfortunately, oh my God, Dom, I was so bummed. I bought an iMac M3. 3 months before they went to the M4 and bumped the RAM to 16 base. Yeah. And so I bought a 512 M3 with 8 gigs of RAM, and I'm like, but here's the thing, I'm not noticing it. Honestly, for my workloads, the difference between this Mac Mini M4 and my iMac M3 with different RAM and storage is irrelevant. Yep. So I think for most people with a Neo at 8 gigs, absolutely not a problem. I think that if you're doing some serious like compiling in Xcode, if you're doing some AI workloads like as a developer, if you're doing like a bunch of stuff that requires a lot of heavy lifting, I think is going to be a problem. But like you're editing a bunch of 8K streams or 5K red, like whatever, that stuff, you're already on a Pro anyway. You're not even looking at the Neo.
You're not the
right?
target audience for this. You're never buying this to do that.
But the nice thing about the Neo is for the kind of video editing I do, the 4K video editing I do, absolutely I could do it on that. The only thing that really misses for me, and I definitely would buy the $699 personally for the storage, but the only thing missing for me, the only thing I cannot live without, and it's going to be really hard, is a backlit keyboard.
Funny, yeah.
And it's interesting because you remember the original MacBook Air, the 13-inch with a little flap on the side. I bought that, spent the money because I was like, I must have the manila envelope Mac, right? Like my MO with Macs has always been to buy the lightest and thinnest that I could buy. Right. So like I've spent extra money for that. Like I had a 12-inch PowerBook G4, and then I went from that to the MacBook Air. Actually, no, I had a Intel MacBook 13, the plastic, the white one, when I first came out, because I wanted the Core experience, the Core Duo stuff and the Intel stuff. But I didn't keep that very long. I sold it, and then I got the Air, the original, and that had a backlit keyboard. It was, it was a pricey, expensive, fancy thing. And then when they went to the 11 and 13, like the wedge shape that stayed with us for a long time, I immediately got the 11, but it didn't have backlight. For the first iteration, it didn't have backlight on that. And then the second iteration, I immediately updated to it 2 years later or something, even a year later or something, because it had backlight. So I have a feeling this is what I'm thinking, Dom. Tell me what you think. I think next year they're going to come out with an A19 Neo, A19 Pro Neo, or maybe whatever, an A20, who knows, that'll have backlight.
I could see it. I could see backlight. Yep. I could see Touch ID coming to the base model.
Touch ID being standard. Yeah. The other thing is USB ports, but I can live without that because I rarely plug things into my Macs. MagSafe, man, it's nice to have. It'd be nice, but I think it's a reasonable cut to make. I think they need to fix the different ports. I really think that the next version, and I know that's chip dependent. Same with the RAM. So I'm thinking that A19 Pro Neo next year might have backlight, might have two USB 3 ports. I don't know if the A19 chips does that though. I don't know if it supports two USB 3s because it might have the same problem. It's an iPhone chip. So maybe we'll get an A20 at some point that does dual. I don't expect Thunderbolt. And I can live without Thunderbolt, but it's the two ports, the one that's slow and that's awkward.
Having a slower one that's not marked and,
it's a bit awkward.
Yeah.
Right? I can live with a webcam. I can live with the trackpad not being haptic. I think Apple's going to make it amazing. Yeah. They did it back in the day.
I've heard such good things about the mechanical trackpad. People say it's really fantastic for what it is. So
I think honestly, it's the same essential mechanism as there is in the Magic keyboards for the iPad. So
yeah. Are you worried about the slow charging? That's one of the things that puts me off a little bit with this.
A little bit, but here's the reality is I find that with my MacBook Air M2, unless I plug it through MagSafe somehow, it's really rarely charging at the maximum speed. I feel that when I use the USB ports, even with like a 65 watt PD charger from Anker or something, it just doesn't want to charge very fast. I think there's some kind of thermal limitation through the port. I always feel like it gets really warm by the port. Whereas with MagSafe, I think they have just more copper, physical electrical bandwidth for it to gobble up that juice. So my recommendation is if you have a MacBook Air or MacBook Pro, at least if you're not carrying the official charger, which you probably shouldn't, because again, Anker is not a sponsor of this episode, but Anker is a very beloved sponsor of the podcast. And they send me all my chargers. So if you have a tiny little Anker, the new one with the display or whatever, use that and use the MagSafe cable that came with your Mac, from Apple, and you'll get really good charging speeds on MagSafe. But I'm not too worried about that. I think that, same with battery life. It's a bit less than the Air. So what? Like my M2 Air now is 4 years old almost. And reality is, I think my battery's like probably at 90% health. And I'm noticing it's shorter now than it was when I first bought it. So because I travel with it, it's my travel machine. I'm on the road 150 days a year. So
I think mine's got the opposite problem. It's my desk machine. So it's plugged into a power cable 90% of the time, 95% of the time, which is not great for the battery really. Because it's just running through a dock that's charging it the whole time. So it connects to my monitor and everything. So I've definitely noticed when I travel with it now, like its battery is not what it once was, but it's still good. It's still, probably better than most Windows machines you could buy at that price that were,
absolutely. Is that what you're using right this moment?
This is an M2 Air right now.
Yeah, cool. Well, there you go. And when you see me in Vancouver, folks, right now I'm using an iPhone 16 Pro as my webcam, continuity wired, because I've got this Samsung 5K monitor that came with a 4K webcam built in, but no. That is not a good solution. So I just do this. I've got one of those magnetic rings that I just taped to the back of and I just use this. It's only for the podcast. I don't want to leave it plugged in. It is cool though. When you do continuity wire cable, it caps the charging to 80% by default. You don't have to do anything. So it'll drop, it'll use the battery up to 80% and stay at 80. And so if you're above, if you're below, it'll charge you to 80 and stay there. It's really cool. And of course, the nice thing about it is I can do things like this. Autofocus. Oh yeah, it's good. It's nice. See that? Those are the Buds 4 non-pro. Anyway, first thing I found on my desk. All right, so Neo, you tell me, like, I know I've talked a lot about it. I want you to talk a little bit about it too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm psyched. I think the clearest thing I can say about this, I don't know that I'm going to buy one, but it's only because I really do not need a laptop right now. But the moment it was announced, I just turned to my fiance and was like, "Oh, this is the MacBook you're going to buy later this year." Like, because
For her,
she's going to buy one.
Yeah.
She's wrapping up a PhD. She's on a kind of university laptop right now. She'll have to buy her own when she gets out of that. And it was just like, yeah, this is the MacBook we're going to buy you, because why on earth would we buy anything else? She's not doing demanding creative work. She doesn't need loads of power. She likes to be on a Mac rather than a Windows PC. And it looks great. She loves the colors. She was kind of asking, like, oh, maybe I would like this in the Air, that in the Air. And then she kind of turns to, well, does the Air have the fun colors? I was like, no. And she went, oh, okay, yeah, the Neo. That's good.
Yeah, the light blue is the only fun color on the Air. The other thing is there's a lot of debate out there, like, should you buy used Air or like refurbished, or should you still find one of those, last remaining stock of the $599 or $699 M1 Air? And look, if you need these things like Thunderbolt, a backlight, I think, yes, absolutely look for that. But I think right now that is not what the Neo is designed for. No. And I think that you have to remember, you're buying a used or refurbished or out of stock Air for a discount. The same thing's going to happen to Neos.
Yep.
We're going to be able to buy refurb Neos for $399 in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where the equation flips itself on its head. That is the part people are not thinking about right now, is that we're going to have an entire generation of people out there who are going to be able to afford a Mac at $300-$400 refurb.
Yeah.
Or last year's model through Amazon. It's going to change everything. Apple's going to make so much bank from the services alone. I think like this is a game-changing device. And I think in some ways it feels like this combo of 17E and Neo is like the bang bang, the two punch. Because if you're right now looking at September and go back to college sales,
yes,
like that quarter of finance for Apple is going to be incredible.
Well, and especially with the Neo, we've sat here and we've mostly compared it to the Air, right? You're talking about, well, should you spend more on the Air? What do you get? What do you not get? What are the pros and cons of that choice? But
that's because we're Mac users, right?
Yeah.
But then there's a whole Windows world of crap out there, right?
Look at what you would get in Windows or even in Chromebook for $600, and you're going to really struggle to find anything that compares to the Neo in terms of the performance, in terms of the design, just in terms of the kind of the quality of the build and the repairability of it and things like that. And especially, like you said, once you get to that $399 on the refurb market in a year's time, there's just nothing that compares. You're kind of looking at, a janky, slow Chromebook as your closest like price competitor. And why would you get that when you can get this?
Yeah, even if you're not a Mac user, even if all you need is surf the web.
Well, that's it.
You just use Safari. That's
users.
It. Yeah, that's it. Why would you do something else? You never have to touch local storage if you don't want to. Just use Safari and go. Or Chrome, install Chrome and you have a Chromebook. That's it. You're done.
And I mean, obviously Chromebooks have been such a huge thing in the education market for Google.
Like, I love Chromebooks.
And they're great. There's
no reason now. There's like, why would you bother?
Yeah. And this just looks like it's going to swallow up so much of that Chromebook market, so much of that education market potentially.
The
pricing with the education discount.
100%. Mm-hmm.
The fact that from what we've seen so far, it's very repairable compared to a lot of other laptops and certainly a lot of other MacBooks. Less glue, better access to the internal components, which is the sort of thing education wants. This looks like an amazing play for Apple for just getting this huge new low-cost audience, getting a big education market, all this stuff it's basically not really being able to get a toehold in because it's priced itself out of it. And it's found a way to hit that price point, hit that market with a device that feels very Apple.
Incredible. Yeah, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Look at how Android has been elevated by Apple's know-how in manufacturing and design, right? Like, look, I know I'm a bit of a snob, but I'm not an iPhone user. But I do see what Apple has brought to the table that has pushed Samsung to elevate. Like, remember when the Galaxy 5, remember, like that plasticky crap, like it was so terrible. And then we went to the S6 and it was like metal and glass.
Yep.
Oh my God, all of a sudden it felt like you were getting your money's worth. And that's because people had touched an iPhone and they knew that when you touched the iPhone, you felt like you were touching jewelry. And now that's what's the standard. Like now even mid-range phones feel this good. And budget phones, like the 17E, the 10A, they feel so well made and so nice. And you can only thank Apple for that. And I think the entire PC and Chromebook industry right now is going through what happened when the original Air came out, where it showed them what a unibody design could be. And they're going to have to reinvent themselves. And you know who's going to win out of that? I'm telling you right now, Lenovo and Asus, because they're the only ones who have the know-how to do this right. Dell, forget it. HP might get there eventually. But like, in my opinion, they're going to have to like crunch their numbers and figure out how to catch up.
Yeah.
Because they know how to do it, but not at this price point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my A14 from Asus, my ZenBook, I love that freaking thing. It's so light, like the aluminum entire enclosure. It's gorgeous. It's definitely Apple worthy. But is it that price? No, it's double that. It's Air price. Now they need to make the same thing with a Snapdragon X that's the same price. And I don't know if they can do that without like losing money. And so that's kind of what I think is really fascinating. It's going to elevate, you know, again, all ships rise when the tide goes up, right? So good stuff. All right, let's move on because I could go on. Oh my God, so much I could go on. Let's talk quickly about the Pixel 10a. My review's up on hothardware.com, so check it out. Look, there's nothing exciting about the 10a. It's kind of sad in a way. I mean, it's good. It's great. There's nothing wrong with it, you know? But I feel like the 9A, buy a 9A used, $350 on Amazon often. The only thing you're really gaining that I think could be critical for some people if you're an outdoorsy person is satellite connectivity. That's it. The rest is the same phone. Essentially, yes, it's more durable. It's got better protection on the glass and stuff. The fact that they kept the price the same is great. But the base storage at 128, that's rough. You know, I don't know.
It's just the same phone again. It's the same phone, and it's a weird one to talk about, and it's a weird one to review. And I really, my review I think will be live by the time this goes out. And we really debated over the scoring. We've debated over how to assess it because it's in this weird position where the Pixel 9a was the best mid-range phone of last year, pretty much, right? Certainly in the US, but honestly, even in the European market, I was very happy to just tell people, go buy the 9a. It's great. Nothing else will kind of give you the same long-term performance, long-term software support, strong cameras, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The 10A is the same phone, which means it's still really good. It's still a great phone. It has all the same good qualities that the 9A had. It just didn't really add anything new to that. It didn't even do that baseline shift the chipset up a generation to sort of
or
maintain
the
where it
MagSafe
is.
or Pixel Snap in this case.
Exactly.
You know, at least we got that with the 10 Pro Fold. You know, it's the same phone again, but we got the better chip and the MagSafe. So yeah.
And that's what I was expecting. I really thought the 10A would be a very close comparison to the 9A, but they'd put in the Pixel Snap. And kind of like Apple did do with the 17E, right? You just kind of say, kind of same thing again, throw in the magnets. Easy. Everyone says, oh, great, buy this one. You know, it's very similar, but they added this one quality of life feature everyone seems to want right now. Easy win.
100%.
So and they made the phone thicker, so they could have done that, you know.
Yeah, it's a bit of a miss. And yeah, that's the reason why the camera bump doesn't stick out now, because the camera is exactly the same thickness as before.
Yes.
Now
they just raised the rest of the phone to cover it a little.
Which, you know what, it's fine. You don't really feel the difference. It feels it's a beautiful phone. It feels great. It works great. It's got all the Pixel goodness. I'm a Pixel user as my main phone. I have a 10 Pro XL. And I'm 100% on board with the experience. It's just like... $350, literally 2 weeks before when the 10A was announced, you could buy the 9A for $350 on Amazon here in the US. And I was like, no. Yeah. Buy the 9A, 100%. At $350, it's a no-brainer, absolutely the best phone you can buy. Yeah,
it's buy the 9A until you can't buy a 9A anymore. And if there's a point in 6 months where it's just impossible to really get hold of a new/refurb 9A, fine, buy the 10A, because by then it'll be on a good discount itself, and it's a great phone. But there's no good reason to buy right now, again, except unless you really care about satellite SOS. I think that's the one thing.
I feel like it's funny because it's kind of like Google's going through what Apple went through with the 16E last year.
Yeah.
Like they got kind of hammered on, right? They were like, I remember talking to the PR people like, oh, really? Wow, you guys are mad about the MagSafe, huh? I'm like, yeah, we're livid about the MagSafe. Like, this is one thing that makes iPhones so cool and at any price point. And yeah, they're like, but it wasn't on the SE2. I'm like, yeah, but the SE2 is like, it's an iPhone 8, right? Like, we understand why you didn't put it on that. But this case, like, this thing looks like an iPhone 16 and it's a 16e and you don't have, screw you. And so, and so it's exactly how I feel about the 10A. It's like, screw you, Google. What the hell were you thinking? Like, I can understand the chip perhaps because that's a price thing. It's price sensitive. They didn't raise the price. Okay, fine. But, at least we had a distinguishing thing. And the other thing is, were you on that briefing for the 10A where it was just like we were getting gaslit every time we were asking what's changed? Because look, I feel like all they had to say was like, listen, we understand how you feel. This doesn't look different at all. But once you get the phone, you'll notice the SIM tray is in a completely different location. We've rearranged the entire inside of this phone to make it more affordable to manufacture so we could keep the price at $499 in this economic climate. If they had just said that, we would have been, oh, okay, we get it now. And then probably is what happened, but why couldn't they say that? How is it that some people up there in the marketing or PR department didn't come up with messaging around that? It's typical Google. They know how to shoot themselves in the foot so hard when it comes to PR and marketing. It's like epic. And this is, again, I hope they freaking learn a lesson, but my hopes are not very high, to be honest.
No, I don't totally trust them too. But I agree. They haven't figured out how to sell this phone when it's so obvious that it's the same thing again. And it's maddening that they weren't prepared to finding themselves in that situation because they knew what they were selling, they knew what they were producing, and they must have known everyone would turn around and look at it and just say, oh, it's last year's phone again. Yeah. That's weird.
When I finally got it in hand, I was like, this is a completely different phone. Like, because I'm an engineer and I look at the port location, everything, I'm like, wow, like they had to redo the whole thing inside. Like, this is real. And I'm like, why didn't they just say that? Like, I would be so much more forgiving. Like, and instead they're like, oh no, we're just going to deny it's the same thing. Weird. Anyway, let's move on. S26 base and plus. You can please rant away for 5 minutes because I could rant too. These phones don't need to even exist at this point.
I mean, it's almost just trotting out the same rant again with a slight difference, which is that for Google, for the Pixel, it was, it's the exact same phone as last year. They've really changed basically nothing. For Samsung, it's, they changed a little more than last year. It is like a real spec refresh. They got the chipset bump. The smaller S26 has a bit of a battery bump. There are little spec things that are a meaningful change. The problem here is the Pixel had a big revamp last year. The S26 did not get a big revamp last year. It didn't get a revamp the year before that. It didn't get a revamp the year before that.
This is like the ultimate Groundhog Day. Like, I feel like you put us S22. Actually, that's what I wrote in my review. Actually, I should bring it up. It's hilarious. Let me actually read you literally what I wrote in my S26 Ultra review that I'm writing right now. I'm like, take a look at Samsung's Galaxy S22 Ultra, S23 Ultra, S24 Ultra, S25 Ultra, and S26 Ultra. Can you tell them apart at a glance, from a distance, in someone's hand? Right? That's exactly where we're at. Like, nothing wrong with that. And as I said here in my review, I said, obviously the S26 Ultra's design doesn't stray too far from its predecessors. And from a brand recognition perspective, that's a good thing, but that's the only good thing because it's like the rest, like the cameras are really the ones that are upsetting.
The cameras are,
like,
it's not
at least
acceptable.
The S26 Ultra kept the same price, got the privacy display, which has got to be costing more money, and got better apertures on the two most important cameras. And here we have literally the same camera module and lenses as we did 4 years ago.
4 years, 4 full years, not a single change, not an aperture shift, not a sensor shift, nothing.
Dom, I feel your pain. Like, that review must have been hard.
It was maddening. I know we're going to talk about this in a bit afterwards, so I won't lean on it too much, but I came onto the S26 straight off the back of the Xiaomi 17 Ultra Leica edition.
Oh my God, even worse.
So I've been using this incredible camera, pushing boundaries, and it's interesting, the continuous zoom telephoto, having so much fun playing around with that camera and trying to figure out what it could do. And then going to the Samsung one and being like, well, I've used this camera 4 times, and it used to feel okay, and now it just feels like it kind of sucks, especially for the price. I mean, I went from the S26 then to the Pixel 10a, and that's a difference of several $100. And I didn't feel like, oh, this is a big camera downgrade going to the Pixel 10a.
No,
like,
and you wouldn't.
It's really dropped off from the Samsung flagship I was just using. Obviously, you lose the telephoto, but otherwise, it was like the actual photos out of the main lenses. I think there are probably some shots I got from my 10a that I preferred.
I mean, here's the reality. If Google put in their AI zoom on that 10a, it would be indistinguishable from the Samsung at 4x, 5x, up to 8x, probably. Even though Samsung has more hardware. Because, we all agree that 10 megapixel 3x telephoto is vestigial at this point.
It doesn't do much.
If you compare the Z Fold 7, which has the same camera system other than telephoto, than the S25 Edge, like the S25 Edge at 4x zoom, 5x zoom, which is kind of the spot where things start to degrade, has the same performance as the Z Fold 7 that has an extra lens for telephoto. And then you go to 10x on both, and you can not tell them apart, yet it uses a 3x telephoto on the Z Fold 7. That thing needs to go. That is no longer relevant. When you have sensors that quality that main sensor has, you can probably stretch it with some AI processing. So I think that they would be better served by, but you can't go from 3 cameras to 2 on that.
No.
Flagship.
They'll never do that.
Yeah.
Just put in a real telephoto. Get a bigger sensor in there.
I agree.
Doesn't even have to be further than 3 times. 3x is fine. Just put a real goddamn sensor inside it.
And that brings us back to my pro argument. Make a pro phone.
Yeah.
That is kind of a tweener, Anyway, look, I'll let you guys read Dom's review by putting in the show notes. Let's move on to nothing, because there's a lot of nothing happening last week. A lot of nothing. Yeah, that's funny. Anyway, I have here in my pocket the Pro model, which I've been using now for, like a week or so. I have the pink one. It's lovely. Let me just bring it up here quickly. It is quite a nice phone. I think the Pro's coming to the US, so that's the one I'm most interested in.
Yeah.
Obviously. I've got the glyph always on display turned on, and as you can see, it's slightly pink. I just love how thin it is. I love that it's this unibody metal. I love this little recess here. I love the camera pod. This is like nothing at its best. This is possibly one of Nothing's best industrial design ever of all their products. How do you feel about it? Here's what it looks like in front. Even bezels, everything is just juicy and delicious on this thing. I really love it. For $500, it's a tough one to get this versus the Pixel to me. Because for a nerd, right? Like for a phone nerd,
It does feel like real competition, though.
How do you feel about it?
I think I'm less bullish on the design than you are, though I do like it. I really didn't like the Phone 3 aesthetically.
Oh, neither
the Phone
did
3
I.
design I hated.
Yeah, it's a little excessive.
Yeah, I hope that would grow on me. It never did. I really like the 4A, the regular 4A, which isn't coming to the US.
The 4A is great, 100%.
I love the glyph bar. I think it's a really nice implementation of the glyph lights. I think it's a clever minimalist version of that. And I love the colors on the regular 4A. I think the blue and the pink are beautiful.
I think from a design perspective, the 4A is the one. I'm not saying that, but I feel like this Pro design has grown on me. I feel like there is something about it. The fact that you're now getting a metal phone, like it's a metal unibody phone, it feels much more premium. It feels like you're handling a flagship.
Exactly.
This is more flagship to me than the Nothing Phone 3.
For sure. And it feels
interesting. Better cameras.
Yes, given that they've said they're not doing a flagship this year, right? We're not getting a Phone 4 this year. It's fascinating that not in price point, but in design, they've made this one feel flagship, and it really feels almost like a course correction from the 3, where they're kind of saying like, oh, that one didn't quite work, you didn't all love that, but like, how about this can kind of serve as a flagship for this year because it's got the metal design, it's a lot thinner. I think they've done a great job of shifting their design language, right? This looks very different to anything they've made before.
Yeah,
it's obviously way less transparent, which is a very bold move for them because that has essentially been the core aesthetic they've been identified with, is transparency, and they've not got rid of it, but they've really reduced it, really minimized it. It's just around the camera. But immediately you're like, oh, it's a Nothing phone. It looks totally different to anything they've made before, but you're also immediately like, oh, of course it's a Nothing phone. No other company would make a phone that looks like that. You'd know at a glance it was made by them. So I love what they've done there. I think it's very clever.
And that's what I mean by I really like the design of the Pro, is because it's got the essential, essential part of Nothing, but it's still different. And
Yep.
and speaking of which, I've got the 4A here, so I'm going to unbox this because, you know, you guys are getting everything this week. I'm giving you lots of love. Between the Clicks interview, which honestly is really awesome. Jeff really gave us a lot of good stuff. By this point, when you're listening, maybe you've skipped it, and I suggest you don't. This is always a pain to open because once you remove the seal, by the way, this is what the box looks like. There's some iMaze down there. There's a seal. I removed it, but now like I have to kind of like pry this open.
It's an awkward shuffle at this point, isn't it?
And it's tough with, okay, I got it. So you open this flap and then you get this. I love their packaging. You get this little tab here and you pull on it and oh yeah. So then you get this box and it says stuff. It's cool. Here, I'll leave it up so you guys can read it. And then you take this off, like this top part, it comes off, and then below it is the phone, and the phone has nothing underneath except for like a little indent. So, oh, look at that. It's falling right out. Oh yeah, easy. See, this is much more nothing, right? Like
Yes.
I feel like this is what you expect when you think of a nothing phone, and that's good. But at the same time, I feel like the colors is what makes this phone. That pink,
Yes.
that blue, the blue in particular. You know, I want them to make a yellow. I feel like that's going to be a special edition somehow.
I could see that.
You know, because they did the special edition headphones, which we're going to talk about in a second. All right, here I turned it on. So while it's booting, let me show you a bit closer. This is exactly the same camera system this time, which is great. So the only difference between these two phones is the display size and display refresh rate. 120 versus 144, and display size. The Pro is slightly bigger. I think they're both 1.5K displays, OLED. And then the processor, you get a Snapdragon 7S Gen 4 versus 7 Gen 4. I think that's the difference.
Yes, I think that's it.
Am I right? And yeah, here we go. Of course, you can't see the bezels because the title screen for coming in is not a light screen. But I this is the same polycarbonate, you know, matte finish that we found on the other one. You still the same details with the essential key being silver. I'm glad they moved the key around on these phones. Like it was so hard to always hit the right key. It was next to the power lock key, and the volume rocker was on the other side before. It was a total nightmare. So I'm very happy about this. This is going to be a great phone to play with, but I'm focusing all my energy on the Pro right now, simply because it's the one coming to North America for you folks. Actually, there's more in the box. There's this part, right? So let's quickly open this. You get a case with these phones. I hope that ships on the final US model as well. And then inside here you get a whole bunch of stuff. I'm just going to quickly show you guys. SIM removal tool, a nothing cable, the EU certification stuff, and a manual. So look, this nothing stuff has been a win, and I think their A lineup is where they should live. Yeah. I feel like Carl probably does not want to hear this. I told him when I saw him in person, I said, listen, I know you're going to make a flagship, but you need to flagship harder, okay?
Yeah.
If you're going to flagship, we need like Pixel 10 Pro XL grade.
Yeah, you got to do a flagship if you're going to do a flagship.
Don't follow Samsung, don't follow Apple, just do your own thing. But I think inspire yourself by what Google's doing, and it does need to have the best Qualcomm or MediaTek chip on there.
Yes.
Like you cannot go to a half. I know it's going to be expensive, but look, hear me out. Anyway, so he was receptive. Of course, the A series is where it's at. I think nothing is nailing it. And that brings us to the headphones, which you're wearing right now in white. And I'm going to show the audience. Here are the headphones. So this is the right side. You see there's a button up here. They look very much like the Headphone 1. This is the left side, and there's a white little thing here. As you can see, the controls are the same. On the right side, you've got the rotating like volume. You click on it for play pause. You can click hold for A and C, and then there's this paddle here, goes forward and backwards for next track, previous track. You can hold it on some apps. It supports it. At the bottom, you have USB-C on-off switch, some microphones, the 3.5 millimeter for analog audio. And the nice thing about these is they sound virtually identical to the A's. I've compared, you know, I'm a bit of an audiophile, so I've done some testing. The design is the same. You get the same like metal thing here and adjustable, you know, loop here. The same fun cushions. They're lighter than the metal ones. which is so much more comfortable. And more importantly, this plastic here instead of metal means that one of the things that happened with my Nothing One, my Headphone One, was I threw them like this, like in this position, onto my airplane seat. The first, I just had used them for like, I went on a trip to New York for another thing. I said, I'm going to try them on a plane, right? Great. And I threw them on my seat and I got 2 big dents in the aluminum on these two, because this went like this. It went.
So they just did it off each other. They dented each other.
They dented each other because I threw them on. I always throw my headphones on the seat.
Of course,
my Sony's never have any issues being thrown on a seat for years and years. I've had all the XM versions. I've got this XM6s right now. So these are not going to have the same durability problem. They look super cool. They come in super cool colors, including the awesome yellow of the ear A right here, that yellow. And so I'm like, okay, this is a total win. They sound phenomenal. They cost a little less. You get great ANC. What are your thoughts on these?
Yeah, I basically agree. They've done a fantastic
you're wearing them,
job.
so obviously.
I've been enjoying them. I didn't review them for the site, but I got a sample. I haven't played around with them as much as I want to. That was actually partly why I'm wearing them today. I was like, oh, I'm going to talk about them. I should really spend some more time with these headphones. So I spent my afternoon listening to music through them, and I was using them for this. I think the comfort's improved. I found the first gen. I worried basically that using them all day today, I'd be getting a bit sore and uncomfortable by the time we were on this call. It's been fine. I've been using these for hours, and I'm pretty happy, which I don't think was true with the first gen. Because they are just that bit lighter. The design is so similar, but like you said, a bit lighter, a bit more comfortable. I think you're giving up a carry case in the box.
Oh yeah, there's no carry case.
You get a kind of little bag instead. But I think if they're going to shave $100 off the price, I don't know how much of that they managed to do just by ditching a carry case, but probably a chunk. And very smart way to save some of the money. To get similar, arguably better design and similar sound quality for $100 less, it's really hard to argue with. The first gen were pretty solid for what they were and the price point they were. I think they were maybe, competing with getting towards real flagship headphones and maybe struggling there. But I think at $100 less, these feel like a great option for where they are.
100%. So, pro tip, if you're a tech journalist, you have access to all the things, use the case for the Headphone 1 for the Headphone A.
Very true. There you go. I've got one of those in a cupboard somewhere.
Because they're exactly the same size and fit perfectly. Yeah. I've tried. All right. So I'll put the review from The Verge down in the show notes, so check that out. And then let's move on to some fun stuff. Let's talk about that Leica Leitzphone powered by Xiaomi. Okay. So look, there's no doubt that thing's amazing. Everybody knows the 17 Ultra has been well reviewed and everybody wants it and loves it. I mean, software aside, which I'm not the biggest fan of, the biggest problem I have with Xiaomi software is that they force you to do the separate notification versus
I fully adopted that. I've made my peace with it. I hated it when it came in, and now I love
now
that
you're
life.
used to it because it's easier when you switch between an iPhone as well. But anyway, I don't like it, and I wish I could change it, and they turned that off. They used to be able to change in early versions of HyperOS. Anyway, is it worth getting the Leitzphone?
As opposed to the 17 Ultra.
What do you get extra? I mean, you get different design, the knurling on the sides and stuff. You get the ring. Is the ring on the 17 Ultra as well? Or is the ring exclusive to the Leitzphone?
No, the rotatable camera ring is only on the Leitzphone version.
Okay.
So you're paying, I think it's €200 extra, something like that. It varies depending on the market. I think €300 extra maybe. But it depends on where you are for exactly. There's a lot of variation in the different markets for what the price gap is. I don't think that's worth it unless you are really, really a Leica fan. And a lot of people are. People get very particular about Leica, and that's fine.
For sure.
I'm okay with that. And if that is you, and you love the idea of having that little red dot on the back of your phone, then cool, go for it. And there are a lot of nice touches here that feel very Leica. You've got the little red dot. You've got the just the design in general. You've got this kind of knurled metal edges. They're a bit grippy.
And you get the cover too, right? That's probably worth €100 itself.
Yeah, exactly. So it ships with a couple accessories, and one of them is this very nice kind of faux leather case that then has a lens cap, which I actually love. That's kind of my favorite part about this. I thought I would love the rotatable camera ring. I actually just kind of love the case with a lens cap. It also just says Leica in big letters, which is nice, but it's lovely having a lens cap. It actually is something I feel like I kind of want on these Ultra phones. The cameras are big. I want to look after them. the mounts are large enough that it's very easy to get dust and grime kind of stuck inside when they're stuffed in your pocket all day. And the lens cap obviously goes a long way to solving that problem. So you're having to actually clean the lens a lot less. You get a Leica branded cleaning cloth with it and a kind of wrist strap. So, there are some things like that some people will want to pay for. I think most of what you're getting is in the software. There's a kind of Leica aesthetic that runs all the way through the OS. It kind of ships with all these like monochromatic app icons, which kind of work. And they've done them for all of the Xiaomi apps, for all or most of the Google apps, and even a few like other big apps. Like there's one pre-made for Instagram and for X and things like that. But it doesn't, like, it's not applying to everything. So this is great when you open the phone and you're like, wow, this is good. It all my core Google apps have this like matching look, and even Instagram does too. And then you go and, install some other travel app or your language learning app or whatever
app, and all of a sudden it's like,
and everything else is color.
Broken reality.
Exactly. Yeah. So the whole aesthetic of the home screen is ruined because you have the gall to install apps on your phone.
Damn you! It's a Leitzphone. You do not install apps on that phone.
It's a camera. God damn it! Yeah. Otherwise, it's really about what's in the camera, and then there's some nice stuff. There's some extra like Leica branded kind of filters, some of which are there on the 17 Ultra. I think I haven't used the regular 17 Ultra, so I'm not 100%. I know some of this is in there. I think the big thing is there's a mode that lets you kind of replicate the look of I think it's the M3 and the M9, though I might be getting that wrong, to the Leica cameras.
Monochrome M9,
Yeah, so one is the monochromatic, which actually looks really beautiful because I think often black and white modes on phone cameras are kind of rubbish. And and then the other is basically like a fixed daylight white balance one, which is the M3, I think. And that looks very cool and distinctive when you're shooting outside in daylight. It's pretty terrible the rest of the time. The fixed white balance means in low light it looks awful. I'm sure there's ways to use it that get you very striking photos that you might enjoy. But it's definitely not the kind of straightforward, I'm taking nice photos with my phone. You've got to really be going out to try and use that style and lean into that style and get something out of it. So if you're a Leica person, you're going to hear a load of that and be like, oh my God, I want that. I want the monochromatic M9 mode on my phone. Are you willing to spend hundreds to get that? I wouldn't. I think the best things about this are just the general camera performance. And that is in the regular 17 Ultra. Buy the 17 Ultra. The 17 Ultra seems like a great phone. Yeah, I love this phone. This has been my favorite camera in any phone right now. I have adored using it. I think it's a fantastic phone. I don't know why you would get the Leica version unless you're just really a fan and you really want to express your love of the brand, which is fine. Yeah. That is people, but yeah.
And then, the other thing you have to keep in mind is that they have made Leica phones before. Sharp did them before. But like, we're going to get, the trend is likely that next year's Ultra will come out again, or maybe 2 years from now as a Leitzphone. And then it's like, it's like buying a smartwatch from a fancy brand.
Yes.
Right? Like Montblanc. It's like, should you? Because it's going to be obsolete at some point sooner than you think. Unlike your Leica camera, even your Leica digital camera, right? So it's a whole different ballgame. Like, I think, again, if you have that kind of money, why not? If you're going to keep the phone for 3 years, great, and you can afford it. But I think that for most people, 17 Ultra, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I should also say on the rotating camera ring, because that is kind of the fun hardware thing, and I didn't really touch on that in any detail. I wanted to love this. I did not love this.
Okay.
It felt really like a gimmick to me after a couple of weeks with the phone. I never developed the muscle memory of using it. It always felt more natural and more intuitive to just zoom on the screen using the on-screen controls. Maybe with longer, I kind of learn the muscle memory for it. That's very possible, obviously. It's so flush against the body. This is obviously an enormous camera by phone standards, but it is a very small camera by camera standards.
Yeah.
And so there's not actually very much camera island to grab onto. It's very flush. It feels a little awkward. And actually what I found more often than not, I just hit it by accident rather than on purpose. And so I'm trying to use the phone and I realize I've zoomed off the focal length I wanted by mistake when I'm on the photo mode. Or on video, it defaults to exposure. So I'd be trying to shoot video of product events, and I'd realize, why is this looking so screwy? And I've nudged the ring, I've shifted my exposure values off where I wanted them, and everything looks completely awful. And I've wasted, I filmed for a minute before I clocked that had happened, that kind of thing. So I actually began to feel like it was more of a liability than help.
I can see it for street photography where you want to do manual focus. But that's a very limited use case, you know. If you can be reprogrammed, assuming it can be reprogrammed.
I don't think you can use it for manual focus. You can reprogram it between different focal length, how you want it to handle the focal length, like whether you want it to scroll through everything or just do the big steps. And you choose to have it for exposure. And I think maybe you can have it cycle through the filters. That's the other thing.
Okay, interesting.
But it can't do focus, I don't think.
That's it, folks. So check out Dom's review. I'll link on The Verge. I'll link to your show notes. Couple of things I want to really briefly touch on because we're running out of time is, what are your thoughts? My Oppo Find N6 is sitting in Vancouver. It arrived 2 weeks ago or just after I left for MWC. It was supposed to be sent here to San Francisco. They screwed up, so it went up to Vancouver. It's fine. It's safe. It's just I'm not going to get it for another. I'm not going to get it for another week now. So you have one. You played with it.
Yeah.
Just like the Nothing Phone 4a Pro, we're not really supposed to fully review it, but we can kind of give our first impressions. I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, basically the thing we're allowed to talk about right now under the embargo is the crease and the hinge, and that's kind of the interesting thing anyway, so that's totally fine. Oppo are calling this the zero feel crease, I think is the term. That is slightly stretching it. I think zero feel is a little much. You can feel it. Okay. But this is definitely the best, shallowest, least obtrusive, most subtle crease I've seen.
How does it compare to Honors?
Night and day compared to the Magic V6.
Okay, so the V6 is worse.
I had them side by side because the Honors was good when I got the V6. I thought, this crease is pretty shallow. It's impressive. It's one of the things Honor touted in its launch. I mean, again, I'll drag my fiance into this once more. I gave her the Find N6 just to kind of get that like blind. Didn't say anything. Just said like, "I'll take this foldable. Like, what do you notice?" And she was like, "Oh, like I can't really feel the crease on this one." And then I gave her the Honor as well, and was like, "Do you think it's very different?" She was like, "Oh, this one's so much worse." Just in the crease respect, she knows nothing about the rest of these phones. Like, but there is a really big difference here. Yeah,
I do the same with Theo. I just hand them a device, like, "What do you think?" And then I get like a deluge of things I've never thought about. And I'm like, crap! it's amazing. Cool. And then did you have a chance to play with the X300 Ultra? I completely missed that at MWC somehow. I guess they had it there and I didn't know about it. So
what they had was they were showing off the accessories that are going to come with the X300 Ultra. So they had two phones that, well, actually there was one phone that was working because it was there for a video recording demo. The others, I think, were demo units. But Vivo brought one working X300 Ultra that they had set up with this whole extravagant dolly camera setup to show off their pro camera.
You mean like the iPhones that are used to do the iPhone presentations?
Yes,
that
exactly.
Apple shows off? Like you've got $1 million worth of accessories?
Yeah. But then that's also kind of what their whole announcement was. They were there at MWC to basically announce that when the X300 Ultra does come out, they announced it'll be global rather than just China, which is great. B, they were announcing that they're going to do another telephoto extender, which will be 400 mil rather than 200 mil, so it's doubling the range of it.
Wow.
And then C, they announced this very kind of outlandish camera rig that they're going to have as an optional add-on, which is really just a camera cage built by Small Rig, who are a company who go and make these like mobile phone camera accessories. But this is full, cage for the phone with a fan and mounts for accessories and tripods and grips for steady shooting and things like that.
Crazy.
And it's kind of refreshingly honest because they were basically, the whole pitch is this thing is ready to be a pro video device. But I love the fact that they're saying, and for it to be a pro video device, we've got all this stuff on the phone about how it handles log and lookup tables and all of this, but also you will want all of these accessories to go with it. And so we're going to start producing them in partnership with these companies and doing official versions. And that's kind of nice and honest compared to, as you say, the Apple version, where they love to be like, oh, look, this movie was shot on an iPhone. But don't look at all of the equipment that was attached to the iPhone.
The $1 million. Yeah.
At least they're like, you need all this stuff.
As an aside, Oppo Find X9 Ultra is also going to be a global phone. So
yes.
We're getting 3 global Ultras. My God, this is amazing.
It's a really big shift. I'm really glad
I will be
getting
getting the Vivo. They generally don't send me the Vivo, sadly, but I will be getting the Oppo. So stay tuned for that. I want to kind of mention real quick, ask you your thoughts on, this is like extra content for the Patreons at this point. Do you think, like, my biggest dilemma when I was using the Find X9 Pro, which was the first phone I had with a telephoto converter that you can attach to the phone, because I know others have done it. Vivo's done it a few times before, and Xiaomi as well, at least with third parties or something. But I find that even though as a mobile photographer, this is really exciting and enticing to me, in practical use, I'm just not using it.
No.
Because it's just like so unwieldy and gimmicky and cumbersome. And so how do you feel like, do you think that they could improve the user experience of mounting and dismounting this thing and storing it safely in a third pocket or second pocket? Because it's feasible. Like I feel like the teleconverter for the X9 Pro is reasonably sized. The problem is that you have to keep the end caps to store it safely in a pocket so it doesn't get covered in lint. And then where do you put I wish they had a way to like attach everything like really quickly and with maybe the end caps hanging off of it or something, like some more practical way of putting it on and off so you can just do it really quick.
I absolutely agree. I think that whenever I've been using these things, I've used Oppos and I've used on 2 different Vivo phones. And every time I'm worrying that I'm going to drop or fumble one of the, you've got 2 end caps for the lens. You've got one for each end. So you've got these two bits of plastic you're taking on and off. They're both very small. They're fiddly. I think I'm going to drop one of these. I'm going to lose it. Or like I said, I'm just going to stick it in a pocket and it's going to come out covered in lint and scratch the lens up when I put it back on. Mounting is this sort of awkward, stick it on and twist and screw and lock into place.
Yeah.
To do it, you've got to put the phone in this specific case, and the case has a specific, mount that goes on top of the camera, and the mount is very ugly, so you don't really want to leave it on all the time.
And for the Oppo, it covers all the other cameras, so
So you can't just leave everything set up ready to go whenever you want to use it. You've got to sort of compromise the phone aesthetically and functionally to be able to mount this thing. So there are a lot of compromises you have, and they definitely need to improve on that. I did find uses for it when I had with the Vivo X200 Ultra, was the first one I got to use this for. And I found it great for things like I happened to be going to a concert the week I was reviewing the phone. So normally you can't bring a big camera into a lot of shows. They're not going to let you come in with a big camera, but I could just stick this little telephoto lens in my pocket, walk in, strap it onto the phone when I got inside, and suddenly I've got the best camera in the building outside of the professional photographers who are there, right?
Yeah.
And I took these like concert photos that were better than anything I've taken at any show ever, and all with like gear that just managed to fit in my jeans pockets. So for stuff like that, I think the same for a lot of sports events, which obviously manage what kind of cameras you can bring in and out. There's a real use case there. I've taken them on a vacation because it's very portable way to bring a nicer lens with you for a vacation. But again, I'm not taking every holiday shot with it because, like you say, it's kind of like you've got to really be going out and thinking, I'm going out to do photography now.
Purposefully doing some close-up photography or zoom photography because
exactly
you want to leave it on and hold it in your hand or maybe put it around your neck or something with a strap or something at that point because it's
big and unwieldy and you can't go back in your pocket.
I don't want them to stop. I think it's cool. I just need to find a better way.
Yeah.
In the same way as moment lenses are a little bit easier to use because they clip on so easier and they're smaller and all
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're going to get there. I think there's some opportunities, but overall, I think that it's an exciting time. And this is where, again, Samsung's not altering hard enough. There's just none of that there. And Apple has the lucky advantage of having an incredible ecosystem with MagSafe built into the phone. You immediately have the opportunity to have stuff installed that's easily pop removable. And so there's all this great stuff around that. So I don't know. I think that we'll see how it goes, but yeah. Camera photography is becoming really cool. All right, Dom, let's wrap it up. Do you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, your various social media things? I know you have like an Instagram that's cool and other things you're doing, so maybe share that as well.
I am on, obviously most of my work is on theverge.com, so you'll find me there all the time. I'm on Blue Sky at dompreston.com, and I'm on Instagram at dom.preston. But then I also have a little food Substack I run on the side.
That's what it was, a Substack, sorry. Yeah.
That's on Instagram as well. So I have a Substack where I write about mostly London food, but a lot more broadly as well when I travel, some recipes, cookbooks, things like that. That's called Braze on Substack and Instagram, so you can find that too.
It is very cool. If you're like me, a foodie, you should check it out.
And
Good
all
stuff.
of the photos on there are basically taken with either a Xiaomi Ultra, an Oppo Ultra, or a Vivo Ultra. It's like whichever Ultra phone I've reviewed most recently gets dragged out to restaurants, and I really put them through their paces on macro modes and low light photography and dimly lit restaurants and things like that, and they do a fantastic job. So
fantastic. So folks, check out Dom on social, check out Braze, the Substack, and the Instagram. Check his awesome work on The Verge. I'll have a whole bunch of links to it. And you know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tankgrl, TNKGRL, like the comic book character. Just drop the vowels. That's my handle everywhere except on TikTok, where you have to add my year of birth, 6-9 at the end. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny. But anyway, you know, I'm mostly on Blue Sky, on Instagram, on Threads. So chat with us on social, ask us questions, comments about the podcast. If you are new here because Dom brought you here and you want to subscribe, mobiletechpodcast.com has an RSS feed and has a link to all the different services you can subscribe. I'm on all the platforms. If you look for Mobile Tech Podcast, you'll find me pretty easily on Apple, you know, YouTube Music, all that good stuff. So please subscribe. And then if you want to watch some videos, there's a YouTube channel, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. You know how YouTube works. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell. There's some hands-on videos, some unboxing, some reviews. It's occasional, but if you want to see some cool stuff, check it out. Finally, there's a Patreon. I've mentioned it a couple of times on the show. If you want to see a video version of this podcast with extra content and see me unbox devices, sometimes I go overtime like today and you get more stuff. Patreon.com/TNKGRL. That's patreon.com and Tankgrl, like my handle without the vowels. And you can get the video version for $5 a month every week, and you get it a day in advance. That's the deal. That's a very simple Patreon. There's not much else going on. You know, I don't really have too much time to do like the community thing. I'd love to, but it's just not happening. So that's what you get. So consider supporting me through Patreon if you can. And finally, I want to thank our sponsor, Clicks. Clicks is a mobile company empowering people through purpose-built technology. Founded by a team of creators and technologists with decades of experience at some of the world's most well-known mobile brands, Clicks is passionate about building products to help people take action. And thanks so much, Dom, again, for being my guest this week. Really appreciate it.
it's been a pleasure. Always happy to come and chat about the absolute onslaught of phones at the moment.
Yeah, it's pretty insane right now. So yeah, it's a good time. Folks, stay tuned. I'll have another show next week. I'll obviously have Dom again on the show at some point. But until then, cheers, everybody.